For the past several months, parents and advocates have been trying to get more state funding for early education. They say the achievement gaps found in grade 3 go back to when students are 3 and 4 years old, and they want the legislature to provide more money for access to early education, especially in districts with a high percentage of underperforming schools. To bring us up to date on the campaign are a Boston parent, Ursula Allston, and the executive director of Stand for Children Massachusetts, Jason Williams. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Great to be back.
I want to start with Ursula Allston. You have a parent who's in elementary school now, and what about the preschool part of the story here? Did that work out for you?
Yes, it actually did work out for me, Chris. My daughter, Kyra, she started Boston Public Schools when she was 4 years old, so she was able to attend school in K1. So she was able to go into pre-K. And I can tell you that by her starting out in pre-K, she wants to become a teacher now. And it's like, it's amazing how just her getting that early start it helps her, or I should say encourage her more to, learn, interacting with her peers. And she loves to read, write, and like I said, she wants to become a teacher. So it helped her a lot, and she loves school so much that when we had like the snowstorm, the big snowstorm, she used to cry because there was no school. And I just say, starting the kids out in pre-K is a wonderful thing.
Well, think back to when she was in those earlier grades and the changes you saw when she would come home, the things that she was talking about or doing. What did you notice?
I noticed her going to the bookshelf, grabbing a book, and sitting down with her teddy bears and not actually reading what it says, but looking at the pictures and making up her own story as with the pictures with her teddy bears. She would come home and tell me what she learns. I always ask her one question: tell me one thing you learned today. And she would tell me millions of things that she learned within that day. So a lot of times she would play out her day, reenact her day for me, what she did, what she ate, what they're reading, what they're studying. So it helped. It really did help her a lot.
Jason, there's a terminology for what Ursula just described about what's going on with children at that age, if things are working right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and we've talked about this, which I appreciate, for a few occasions now over the course of this current legislative session, because we've been discussing how we see kind of a flatlining of reading scores, in particular in the lower grades. And I'd argue, again, the research is overwhelmingly strong in showing that if we want to address that, we need to get our kids an early start so that they start kindergarten ready to learn. There was a recent study now by the Center for American Progress that was a meta-analysis of all the most current research. And it shows that we can actually shrink the achievement gap by 45% for our African American students, by 78% for our Hispanic students. I mean, that's just staggering results that are really hard to ignore, and we shouldn't be ignoring. So,
well, Ursula, I guess maybe you had something to do with the latest push going up to the State House, and I guess trying to get more support, in this case from the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo. Did you have anything to say to him, or maybe at least to convey in some way? Yes,
today went to the State House, and a group of us delivered handwritten letters to Speaker DeLeo, and we urging him to expand the access on pre-K, and just letting him know how important it is for our kids to start at 3 and 4 years old.
Jason, I guess you are getting some support from, at least some encouraging support from the State Senate.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So, I want to definitely shout out Ursula. I mean, it's incredibly powerful to have parents who have seen the, impact of pre-K sharing their voices and their stories. It's also, it's hard to hear, but important to have other parents like Maria, who came with us today, her daughter, Juliana, who's now 5. They've been trying for 2 years in a row to get access to pre-K, and they haven't been able to get off the wait list, and now her daughter's 5, which means she's going to have to start kindergarten without having had access to preschool. And I just think in Massachusetts we can do a lot better than that, and we need to do a lot better, and we should do a lot better. So we are grateful that even though it's looking very unlikely that we're going to get resolution to the bill that's pending right now, we are thankful that the Senate has put a new line item in the budget that's going to provide about $2 million to continue implementation in cities like Boston that still need state support to match their local resources in order to continue to expand pre-K.
By the way, you mentioned the wait list. Any idea how big that wait list is?
So I think, it's the wait list right now, the way it's structured as the state can include any child, not just pre-K age, so not just 3 and 4-year-olds. So what we've been focusing on in terms of the numbers is how many 3 and 4-year-olds actually live in our bottom 20% school districts, the ones where we know the achievement gap's the greatest, and that's about 40,000 kids. We're reaching only a small percentage of those kids, which is why we're hoping that we can get to a place as soon as possible where the state can figure out a partnership between our cities and the state in order to fund access for all of our 3 and 4-year-olds in the districts that need it the most. We're thankful that the speaker, for example, announced at a recent Boston Chamber event that he wants to put together a business advisory council to actually tackle that question. And we're hoping that as that forms, that there'll be a very concrete timeline and a report that's issued that'll allow us to get to resolution on the legislation as quickly as possible.
Ursula, you feel maybe a little discouraged because there's so many people who want money for so many things, just in education. I mean, we have charter schools, we have people worried about cuts in the Boston public district schools, so there's so much need out there. It's almost hard to ask for anything more.
It is hard to, ask for anything more, but I mean, these are our kids. This is our future. So, I mean, it should not really be a price on our children's education. They are the ones who are going to be running this world pretty soon, and they need a head start. They need to start when they're young so they be able to graduate from high school, attend college, not to be, scared or afraid, and also to have a successful life.
Jason, what about the money question? Because as I mentioned, there's so many other demands out there, and a lot of support for those too.
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, Chris. I mean, we don't sugarcoat that. I think it's the reason why the bill is still pending. What our argument has been is, while you can't do this on the cheap, and it's a very hard thing to work on, is you're going to save so much money in the long run by investing earlier in our children. I think when we had a public hearing last fall, we had, the secretary, the commissioner, others sharing that if we knew then what we know now, we probably would be making different types of investments in the education of our children. And so that's why we're excited there's going to be this group assembled to try to tackle this question. But let's not just have that be an indefinite process, because our kids are only 3 and 4-year-old once.
Right. Finally, Jason, I know there's one website where people can check out for updates on this. Yeah,
we'd love for anyone that feels as passionate as we do or isn't there yet but wants to learn more and develop that passion to go to PreK4MA. It can be the number or spell out the word .org. And they can learn more about the legislation, about the issue, all the research, and they most importantly right now can actually sign a letter that we're sending to all the legislators to take action.
Well, thank you both very much. Jason Williams from Stand for Children in Massachusetts and Ursula Allston, Boston parent. We'll have more news in just a moment.